In today's episode, this is part 3 of my Get Ready With Me series on how I prepare for a webinar using generative AI. So let's get right back into it. Create a checklist of employee engagement strategies, tactics, and methods that an individual property manager could use to audit the property's employee engagement practices. So we're not trying to solve this for like all of, say, Hilton, but if you have a general manager for a specific location, go through this checklist and say, okay, are we doing the basics? One of the things about best practices, a lot of people crap on best practices and say, oh, you'll never be a leader. You'll never be an innovator with best practices. Well, no, this is like get your house in order with best practices first. Get a solid basic foundation because you can't innovate if your basic structure is broken, right? If your employees hate you and your customers hate you, no amount of AI innovation is going to fix the fact that your employees hate you and your customers hate you. You need to adhere to best practices to achieve a minimum level of competence. That's what best practices are, a minimum level of competence. So with this checklist, right, we can say, and this is what goes in the presentation, you should do this. So we're going to swap out our real estate example here for a generation. One of the things that we forget when we're doing webinar setup is that this is actually valuable in and of itself. So you can take the data from something like this Gemini example, and it comes out in markdown format. Let's turn it into a PDF. And from that PDF, we should now have a hospitality engagement best practices checklist, right? So it's a 2.5-page document, which is pretty decent. Are you doing these following things? Now, this is a tangible benefit, right? This is something that you can give away in a presentation. You can say, hey, if you want to download our hospitality engagement best practices checklist, here it is. Anytime you're working with generative AI, I mean, anytime you're working with data, period, but especially with generative AI, there are all these byproducts of the work. So I'm getting ready for a webinar. I'm building the pieces for this webinar, and this is a byproduct of it, right? I could take this piece of content, which is very good, right? It's not groundbreaking, but it's a good set of best practices, and it can become part of the deliverables for the webinar if I wanted it to be. To say like, hey, here's a thing you can grab a hold of. So as you're using generative AI, don't just use the tool and say, okay, I did the thing, whatever. Capture some of its outputs and its byproducts and make use of them. Find a way to take that thing and make use of it. Now let's go on through our examples here. We have some more basic examples that we are commonplace. This one is an interactive example. So this is from the mortgage one of how we used generative AI to create a best practice thing for technological for building your own software. An example here would be how could we use it for, if we go back to our major use cases, right? If I'm a property manager at a hotel, how would I demonstrate technological innovation? Maybe in generation, I could create a custom GPT or another type of service where people could interact with it and get ideas for visiting the area. Hotels already have this information, right? Go to any hotel website and says, hey, here are the things that are of interest in our area. But if you knew your customer really well, if you had some decent data, you could build an interactive experience. So let's pretend, what's a good hotel? There's the Boston Marriott Newton. That's a decent hotel. Oh, the Aloft. There's an Aloft near my house. So let's do this. Let's use Gemini and start a new chat here. Say, let's plan some day trips in the Metro West Boston area. I'm staying at the Aloft Hotel in Framingham. Massachusetts. I'm a Gen Z traveler who is interested in experiences as opposed to more tangible purchases. And I'm really interested in off the beaten path, unique experiences that avoid tourist traps. I enjoy nature and short hikes and walks. I don't enjoy tourist traps. I don't enjoy large crowds. And I'm not especially interested in shopping. When I dine out, I try to avoid chains and support local independent businesses. Based on these criteria, help me plan some interesting things to see while I'm at the Aloft. So this is not a super complex prompt, but it does express the preferences of a very specific kind of traveler. So if the hotel manager has that kind of knowledge about the guests, because we saw in the analysis, the merging of business and leisure travel was kind of flagged in there. This is going to come up with some recommendations. Let's go back to our document set and ask more details about this, because I think there's something interesting here. Let's see. Outline the key points about the blurring of business and leisure travel. Remember that, again, if we've got the data, we should not just do an initial survey of it, but actually continue to ask it questions so that we can drill down and know better what our webinar audience is going to be interested in, know better how to present the information to them. So in this case, we have the blurring of business and leisure travel, traditional lines of blurring, rise of remote work, work-life integration, shifting work culture, demand fluctuations, evolving guest expectations, guests' leisure. That's a terrible neologism. Leisure seek amenities and experiences both their professional and personal needs. Flexible offerings, personalized services, technology integration. So let's think about this rationally. A business traveler is not going to have 3 days off, right? But they might have an afternoon. They might have some time to kill before a flight. They might get done with a work meeting early. They might want to hit the town, but they only have an evening. So let's take a look at our recommendations now. Say, this is great. However, we are catering to the leisure traveler, the business and leisure traveler who has only a few hours to spare. They might have some time to kill before a flight, or get back from a meeting early, or just need something to do in the evening after a day of work travel. Refine your recommendations for this traveler. Garden stroll and tea time at Garden in the Woods. So this is really terrific here. For the generation part, what we can do is actually have this thing create travel recommendations. So I'm going to screenshot this. This goes in the presentation. Based on our knowledge, let's copy our recommendations. And now, what do we have? Of course, we have a guide, right? So you can make PDFs of these things. And this could go on your website. So let's go ahead and actually... should we do an animation of this for the website? Now, you know what? I'm just going to leave for the hotel and travel hospitality webinar. I'm going to leave this as is and just discuss it in there. But that's an example of a generative AI task where we're generating something that's for a very specific market segment to cater. And again, we're going back to our key challenges, right? Always staying focused on these key challenges. And the experience economy in this case is what we're catering to. Our next use case is extraction. This is a case where we're going to want to find some data about hotel travel. Maybe we can find a data set about hotel reviews. So we go to Perplexity and we say, find a data set of hotel reviews. And we have the Carnegie Mellon hotel data set review. We've got a GitHub. This is a 2020 vintage here. The Carnegie Mellon data set says 43,300. Let's take a look at the zip file here. Okay, so this is really good. This is an export of data crawled from TripAdvisor. So let's go ahead and take a screenshot of this, because this is the kind of ugly data that people would be interested in being able to parse, right? So we're going to put that into our presentation here. And now let's go to our generative AI model, start a new chat, and let's go ahead and get, let's get a couple of hundred rows. Good. Something went wrong. No kidding. I bet you can't handle something that large. Let's go to... That's it for part 3 of my Get Ready With Me series. Stay tuned for part 4. See you on the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to know when new videos are available, hit the bell button to be notified as soon as new content is live.